Cool. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. We are here with Miss Lynn Taylor.
Hi.
Hey, how are you, Lynn?
Good. How are you?
Very good. I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm glad we have a chance to do this here before the holidays and when things
Yes.
get all crazy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I
Hey,
might
so
be
I,
MIA for a bit there.
yeah, you were like traveling, doing anything like that?
I'm about to have a baby, so gonna be a
And
little distracted.
you told me, I think you said early February or late January, somewhere around there.
Middle January,
Middle January.
if
Okay.
she stays in. So,
Woo.
could be any time
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, she might be on her own schedule, so we'll see.
Right.
Oh, that's exciting. You know, it's a little girl and
hmm
you got the names picked out and everything.
Zoe, yes.
Zoe. Okay. Well, congratulations. That's very exciting. I'm sure you're probably ready to just be done and have the baby. And
Yeah. Yeah. A little selfishly.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, mine's turning one on January 12th, so
Oh, that's such
right
a
in that
fun age.
middle. Yeah, they might be I don't know. We'll see about yeah, January 12th might be the day. Who knows? Well, that's
Yeah.
very exciting and congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, so I want to ask you to start out. Okay, I have your Amazon stuff pulled up. You've got 7 books of your own
hmm
as, writing as Lynn Taylor, but your account TA Books is multiple different authors.
Yes. Yeah. We have 3 authors on the team.
Okay, and it seems like you kind of at least run the TikTok side. Like that's
Yes.
so tell me about that. How did you guys get together? How does that work? It's definitely different and interesting to me, for sure.
Yeah. No, it's actually, I mean, we're all friends in the back end. And actually Anthony and May knew each other before me, so I'm the latecomer, but I've been doing social media longer than them. So I have a little bit more of a feel for it, and they're just like, yeah, if you want to do it, go for it.
That's cool. Is there like any kind of end game or goal in mind? Almost like, if the three of us work together, we can market better, or like just we're just a group that loves books and we're friends and we'll just do a thing together.
Yeah, probably more the second one. I mean, we're just kind of going with the flow of it. We actually have another friend of ours that is going to hopefully publish her first book next year. And so she'll be a part of the team.
Okay,
But she is getting her feet into the social media because she wants to actually do it herself a little bit too. So
for sure.
I'd like to grow it, but I don't have plans to any specific plans.
Just for fun, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of cool. Honestly, before I got on TikTok, I didn't know any authors whatsoever.
hmm
Like I knew a few people who had like, let's say, published a book and then nothing ever happened and they didn't really, and this might have been decades ago, right? Like just a person threw a book out there that was like probably too personal and but
Right.
in terms of like friends and family, I mean, no one I know, my aunt published a book, but it was like a law book kind of thing, not a, fiction novel kind of thing. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. You got, some like close friends and they're authors too, and you're like, hey, you can chat about books, share book ideas, share marketing information, all these kind of things, support one another. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
No, it's awesome. And it's really helpful, especially because since we're going the indie author route
Right.
and we have to do everything, we can
Yes.
kind of bounce ideas off each other like, okay, so how does this work? Like with May doing an illustrated book, I have no idea. So she took that on. And I was like, okay, now we know.
I mean, that's so valuable, right? Like individually, I mean, there's so much to learn. And like
hmm
I've learned a lot, but there's still a much greater amount I don't know. Like it's only tip of the iceberg. And then there's so many, I don't want to say scams, but there's a lot to learn in the whole publishing thing. So to have 3 different people kind of doing
hmm
some trial and error and you can share ideas, that just seems like such a valuable thing for sure.
Oh yeah, no, it's very helpful. And I mean, the TikTok community in general, the indie author community is very helpful with even helping all 3 of us learn what we need to do.
Yeah, and any authors watching the show, I don't think TikTok will be banned. Not outright, at least. I mean, it's interesting. Who knows what the next couple months will look like? But I will say that of all the social media platforms, TikTok is the best community, the most engagement. They'll show it to the most people. You have the most supportive people.
Mhm.
Um, I think if I add up all the other social medias together, they're still not as good as just having a TikTok account as an author.
Yeah, no, it's huge. Because I was dabbling on Instagram and Facebook, and it felt like nothing. And then we get to TikTok in October, so we've only been there for a few months, and I'm like,
Okay.
this place is great.
Wow, and you make friends really quickly too. I
Yeah.
had the impression you're around there much longer just because like the engagement you have with everyone. But I mean, it's just that kind of community. I mean, you can just talk to people and people are sharing your books, you're sharing their books, and
hmm
it's amazingly supportive group. I have this joke about Instagram that, like I'll put a reel on TikTok and they'll show it to like 600, 700 people. I'll put the same thing on Instagram and they'll show it to 30 people and 26 of them are my own grandma and all their fake accounts.
Mhm.
That's just like how it feels. Yeah.
Yes,
You
yeah.
don't, yeah. Hey, so I do want to talk about, well, actually, okay, your group, do you guys have any intentions to like get a podcast together? Like I could picture like the three of you kind of sitting around, just like talking books, and that would be a lot of fun, I think, to watch.
Oh yeah, no, I have so many visions for this team. I think it more is going to be getting like I'm getting our feet in the water with all of this and just testing it out and then kind of slowly introducing them.
Okay.
Because both May and Anthony have mentioned that they're interested in doing videos, but they're so nervous because this is not their cup of tea. And
Right.
so slowly getting them incorporated into that. But yes, I would love to sit down and just talk about our books. I think that'd be so fun.
I think it'd be fun to watch. I mean, I would be for sure your first subscriber. Um, it
Thank
was
you.
funny. You're very welcome. I was talking with Mel Parrish last week, and she made the point that most authors are introverts. So like
Mhm.
this whole putting yourself on videos, making all these social media posts, I mean, it is like a very uncomfortable thing for most of us, and it's pushing our comfort zone in a big way.
Yes.
Did you kind of
Yeah.
feel that too? Like,
Oh yeah, even me. I think I'm the most extroverted of the group, but even I'm like before we started this, I was still freaking out. So it just you just have to get used to it.
I think it's good to do things that push your boundaries and scare you, assuming they're not dangerous. Like, I don't think,
Mhm.
bullfighting is a good idea, but put yourself on video for, talk about your
Right.
books. It's scary, but it's nothing bad's going to happen to you. You stop filming the video, you still have your family, you still have your friends, you have all the things you showed up with still. So,
Right. Well, and for me too, when I first started, it was what to say about my book. So like people would ask the genre of the book, and I'm like, it's a novel. I don't know.
I,
Like I
honestly,
don't know how to describe it. So
it's one of those things like for like finishing a whole book and then writing the description or like
Mhm.
trying to make a little video, you're like, I don't know, there's a lot here. And
Yeah.
I feel like I've made every video. Like I was gonna make one today. I just hold up the book and it was just like the tag is like when you run out of book video ideas and it's just like it's good. That's just
Yeah.
like that's all. That's what we have left here because we've done everything. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I do have your account pulled up. So you have published 7 different books so far.
Hmm.
That is pretty impressive. How long ago did you publish the first one?
The first one was done in 2019.
Okay,
So
so
it's just been like one after the other.
so just like every 8, 9 months or something, you just get a book
Yeah,
out there.
this year, 2024, I published 4 books because
No
I
kidding.
am an ADHD writer and it's really
Okay.
bad. So I will jump around from topic to topic. And like as it comes to me, I'm like, okay, I have to stop what I'm doing and write the other book. And then so by the time I got done with that, I was like, I have 4 books.
Yeah, like one idea leads to another, and like I'm
Yes.
inspired. I got to start on this one, and
Yeah.
that's super interesting. Do you do all your own editing, or like do you kind of share that with your crew? And
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, so like we do our first rounds by ourselves, and then yeah, we will go through a software, and then I will go through the team and as like another set of eyes because even my books that are out now, I'm sure there's stuff in there we missed. So
I
it's a
mean,
lot to
it's
look at.
so hard to get all the errors out of a
Yes.
book, and I find it's almost impossible to like proofread your own stuff. Like your mind knows all the
Mhm.
words, so it seems to like skip. It just like it doesn't actually read the lines as they are. It just like it knows what's
Yeah.
there and like condenses it or compresses it or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I had an entire chapter of Mindscape, and that's
Mhm.
been out, I think, around 2020.
Okay.
An entire chapter where I changed the name. Like I misspelled the main character's name in that chapter
No.
multiple times. And someone just told me that. I'm like, seriously?
He's like, found out the hard way, I misspelled my own character. He's like, well,
Yeah.
actually, his name changed. He
Yeah,
had
you didn't know that was an Easter egg.
it's a metaphorical shift. Yeah.
Right.
So I see. Okay, so I see you do have a series. What is the like? You have Crimson Lies, Dark Truths, Secrets Untold. What is the
Mhm.
name of that series?
Um, that was another fun one because they were like, "What is Amazon asked you the name of the series?" I'm like, I never thought of that, so I just called it the Crimson Light series, so
Just
that
starting with the
just
first one, right?
references
Yeah.
back to it. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty. I mean, I'm looking at your books, and I mean, I have so many questions, and I know this discussion could get very deep very quickly. You're all over the place with your writing in the
Hmm.
most delightful kind of way. Like, and I appreciate that too, because I want to write what I want to write. I'm not going to put myself in a box that's like, this is my genre and this is all
Right.
I'm interested in and this is the lane I stay in. The Crimson Lies series, it's like a post-apocalyptic
Mhm.
zombie kind of world.
Yeah, and I want to relate it more to I say Divergent and Hunger Games because it is
Mhm.
more of a corrupt government kind of feel
Okay.
than the zombie. So like if you compare mine to Anthony's zombie series,
Mhm.
his is zombie, like Walking Dead kind of zombie.
Right.
So yes and no.
That's the thing, right? I mean, I think honestly, realistically, in an emergency like that, like you would have the actual problem, but then you'd have all the people that take advantage of the problem and take power and just like, okay, we could build a much better world than this, but you have like your warlords, your corrupt politicians, the I don't know, the tyrants, all these kind of people. So I actually think that's probably more in line with how that would go. So is that the most recent thing you're writing? Is the Crimson Lies series, or is that you
No, that is wrapped up. I don't think I have any. Who knows? Something might come to me later, but that's wrapped up. And my most recent one was Light of Mine, which is my contemporary Christian series, or not series. I'm sorry, book, just novel.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
yeah,
was looking at that one. So that one just recently came out, yeah?
yes. I want to say July.
July, that's
These
pretty
all,
recent.
I'll say these all just kind of like mesh in my head when they came out.
See, that's the thing, right? And I'm like, when you said you wrote 4 books this year, that's like what I'm wondering because like if you went the traditional route publishing, it's like, okay,
Mhm.
you write your book, you spend 6 months querying an agent, and then 6 months finding a publisher, and then they might wait a year to publish it. And then 2 years later, you're like talking about your book as if it's brand new, and you're like, I've already written 10. So I don't remember what's
Yeah,
in this one. It was so long ago. But from
yeah.
like if you publish 4 this year, how do you kind of keep the marketing straight in your head? Like, I'm sure you're on to the next idea, but you're like, no, 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 we're gonna talk about what I just did, even though in your mind you're kind of thinking about the next.
It's so hard. It is so hard because I'm working on a work in progress. It's a story about my grandma.
Okay.
But at the same time, me and Anthony collaborated. And so technically this year, I also wrote a fifth book because we collaborated on another book coming out soon.
No kidding.
And that one's a murder mystery paranormal deal.
That sounds fun for
So
sure.
I have Christian book and then murder mystery and then my grandma. And like trying to market all of that is very interesting.
You're like,
So I
I'm
don't know.
got a lot of different vibes going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what inspired you to write Light of Mine? And I know that might get personal really quick,
Well,
potentially.
that one's okay. That one actually is one of the older concepts, but I think basically, so I'm religious. I have always been in the church.
Hmm.
My dad was actually a pastor for a long time.
Nice.
So I've seen a lot of different things inside the church, outside the church.
Good and bad,
And
just
yes,
real life. Yeah.
and uh, most of that one, I was really wanting to push it. I think I started that in 2017, and I really wanted to push it so badly. And I have notes all the way back then, like get this done.
Hmm.
But I needed to go through a lot of things before I could get done. And so I went through that stuff this past year, and I was like, okay, now I can wrap it up. Like some of the characters had to come from personal experiences, and now it's done.
I have that impression. I mean, reading the description that like it is deep, complicated, probably hits
Yeah.
way too close to home for way too many people.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's a that one's really hard to market because religion people have very specific feelings on it or against it. So, but it's mostly just saying we need to love each other, both inside and out. So,
That's the right message. I mean, Jesus's last message, right? Like, and I always paraphrase the Bible because I don't open it nearly enough, but I recall like one of the last things he says was basically like, look, if you don't remember anything else, just love one another as I have loved you.
yes.
Like, if you don't
Yeah.
remember anything else, that's the one rule. And that seems to be the one that we are very good at forgetting. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that's basically the base of it is that you could find people inside the church that won't love other people and you can find people outside the church that won't love other people, but that's the main root of it is why can't we just, get along?
Right. I mean, it doesn't seem, yeah, that complicated. Yeah, people are complicated though. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wonder if we're like really simple creatures pretending to be complicated, or if we're deeply complicated, or if the way that we have life and society structure, we're just built to get lost. I'm
Hmm.
not sure. I go back and forth on these things for sure.
I could have a whole other podcast about that too.
That probably would take a week. I mean,
Yes.
there is a lot to unpack in that.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, I remember you told me a little bit about that when you read Truth and Evil, that, you grew up in the church and um, the kind of some of the ideas like hit close to home. And like the video you made about it was very interesting. And I was like, I want to pick your brain more about this. What inspired you to write Light of Mine?
Um, I think there was a very specific scene that came to me, and I don't mind saying this. So basically, it's a single mom who is not in the church, and then she ends up going into the church with a friend,
Okay.
and trying to help the friend find her home church. And in one of the scenes, because she's a single mom, someone sits there and judges her because she doesn't have like her husband with her. And
Mm,
then she's like, "Well, I don't have a husband," and then she gets judged for that because they're an old fashioned kind of person. And
right.
I have seen this exact thing happen in the church. And that's one of those things of like, why does it matter? I mean, she's now here, she has her kid here, and that you should be showing love and light and not judging. And
Right. Like
so,
she's here for, to have a connection with God, and
right.
that's no one else's business. I mean, and this is,
Yeah.
to be part of a community. I do, that is an important subject. And obviously hard for people, right? They say like, okay, if you point a finger, four are pointed back at you kind of thing, or I guess it's three are pointed back at you. Um,
Yeah.
but that's like a real thing. And and I don't want to get necessarily too religious, but I love talking about theology and this kind of stuff. But I do remember a scene in the Bible where Jesus was sitting down with like some tax collectors, prostitutes, and the Pharisees were like, "Why are you sitting with them?" And he's like, "A physician doesn't work with the healthy," kind of thing. Like,
Yes.
physician isn't here to deal with the healthy.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that one. I also love the one where it says you're pointing out a splinter in someone's eye while you have a log in your own.
right.
Like,
You're like, ooh.
who's to say that you're to judge a single mom? Like, you don't know.
Right. I mean, like we're all works in progress, right? I mean, every
Yeah.
single human being on earth is here to grow and learn, and we're here because we're not perfect. If we were perfect, we probably wouldn't need to be here. So we've all
Right.
got our work to do. And I try to give people grace that even the people who are like judging and stuff, there's no way to point that out to them that like, hey, look, you got a log in your own eye. But I suppose that's like the work that they are here to do ultimately.
Right.
That's like the way I tell myself at least. Uh,
Right. Well, and
but
that transitions into Mindscape a little bit too. One of my favorite words I found was sonder,
so
which is kind of like perspective. I love perspective as well, but sonder means that you could just be a passerby in someone else's life and you have no idea what they're going through, and like they have no idea what you're going through. So it's perspective.
interesting.
And when you realize that between like light of mind between the church and the non-church, and then just in general as a person, you have
Yeah.
no idea what they're going through. They have no idea what you're going through. And everyone's like, well, he's me kind of thing. But
That is interesting, yeah. And I love the cover. I just pulled up Mindscape. So I see that it's a human brain
mhm,
on a very, very interesting kind of one is a beautiful flower on one side, and one is more of a little bit of an artistic, chaotic, Jackson Pollock kind of vibe.
yeah.
You want to talk about Mindscape at all?
Sure. So the cover itself, Mindscape is going to always be my favorite book, baby.
Okay.
It has its flaws, especially now that I fixed the main character that's name was messed up. But in general, this book itself literally cured my depression at one point. Like it
Kidding.
did it for me. It was one of those where the characters just took over and wrote themselves. I had
Interesting.
no plan the whole time. um, but what it is that she goes through boxes. So she takes this pill. I don't know if I
Okay.
can say that, but she takes this pill that does not exist. So I just had to make it up.
Okay.
um,
Okay.
and she has lucid dreams. And so she goes through her boxes, which are basically her traumas. And so a lot of those are things that I had gone through in my life that I was holding on to completely unnecessarily.
Right. And put them in a little box and pretend they're not there,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. And well, it's a metaphor too of like, if you have everything shoved in the closet and it's just in boxes, you don't have room for new stuff. So
Right. Right.
you got to clean that out.
You got to shed your skin if you want to grow. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Which I didn't realize that. And so she goes through all these boxes and she's cleaning it out. And then, it even touches on, gosh, what's it called? Inner child healing
Okay.
at the end. I had no idea that was a thing. Literally, this is like my character made this a thing. And then I realized that's actually like a
Oh,
psychological thing to heal.
right. It's like, oh, there's actually modality of like healing.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I actually
pretty
touched
cool.
something I didn't know.
There you go.
So yeah, it's a very deep one. But yeah, the brain, I guess, is like I have there's a beautiful creative side of me, and then I have a chaotic, beautiful creative side of me,
They're both
and
beautiful, but
they
one
come
is kind of
together.
orderly and finding,
Yes.
yeah, finding some common ground between them. That is wonderful. I love everything you're saying. I do think writing is an absolutely beautiful art form. Right in the beginning when you were talking, it sounds like, and I honestly believe in like, let's say divine inspiration in writing, where like sometimes you get a book idea and you have no idea where it came from, and it almost doesn't feel like it belongs to you. You're like, I don't know whose hands these are, and you're like
Right.
typing away, writing away, and you're like, I don't know where this came from, but like, there's something about it that's wonderful. Is that kind of how you feel about this one?
Yes, our team calls them downloads. I don't know where that name came
Downloads.
from.
No, no, I
So
100%.
yeah, we'll just randomly message each other, be like, so I got a new download, and then we'll explain this other book idea that just literally came to us. Like the one Anthony and I are working on, he wrote up the notes in 2 hours, and then we just started, like, it's been the fastest writing we've done this entire time.
It just like came to you and you're like, it's almost like now your responsibility to just make it real. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
whose idea this is. We're almost like ghost writing from the download, but
Hmm.
like, okay,
Yep.
it's on our plate now. We're gonna make this thing real here.
Well, gotta go publish it now. Yeah.
Honestly, that's amazing though. I I feel that. And I have a second podcast, and the last conversation I had, we were talking a lot about intuition versus reason. And it does feel like authors, especially fiction authors, write much more from a place of intuition than a place of reason. Like if it was all
Mhm.
reason, they would be philosophers. They'd be writing philosophy. But that intuition thing where just like ideas emerge and you just like make them real and you just write from the gut and you like don't even know what's going to happen next. Is that kind of like how you feel when you write? I mean, it's an intuitive thing.
Um, yeah, no, I really do think because I think there's times I have to remind myself this or remind the team members, or I think I even reminded Ron Shaw recently with
Mhm.
his Purgatory book that there's some things that like this is your book, you can make it whatever. And
Right.
because they try to do too much reason and they try to have too much research, and then it just feels more like a research based thing and
Hmm.
instead of this fantasy thing. So like with Ron's Purgatory book, I was like, you can say whatever, it's purgatory. We don't know. Like,
Right. Like no one, yeah, no one can say right or wrong, right?
right. Yeah. Same thing with like Mindscape. Like, I don't really know what's going on in the psyche, but this is what is coming to me now. So why not just write it down like that?
Right. And I mean, that's another one where like, I mean, everything about the psyche is all just theoretical, right? Like no one
Mhm.
can say like, no, that's not how it works or no. It's like, even when they're like diagnosing people with like all kinds of different things, I mean, three different psychologists might give the same person three different diagnoses. I mean,
Yeah.
the human mind is way, as I've heard it is the most complex structure we know about in the universe is
Hmm.
the human brain. So to just like be like, oh, this is how it works, and here's a little, model on paper. I'm like, it's not that simple. We need something functional we can work with, but
Yeah.
that's not how all of them work. That's not exactly how they work, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like everyone's things that everyone goes through. Like everyone's gone through different traumatic, like if we all had a loss of somebody, it's all
Mhm.
different for every single person. Like the
Yeah, like the
stages of
way
grief
you're
will be
gonna
different.
deal with that, right? I mean, like the same
Yeah.
family dealing with like, okay, they lose a grandparent.
Hmm.
Different siblings are gonna deal with that totally different ways. Um, That is, and yeah, I mean, every brain is a different, unique thing entirely, but there is common ground, which is why people like books at all, right? Like if there wasn't common ground between them, I don't think any of us would sell any books at all. To be like,
Right.
whatever your story is, it would just belong to you and it would make no sense to anybody else, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. That's what, give me 1 second. My dog is pawing at the door and it's distracted me. She's trying
You're
to
good.
play office here. Here, now. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, sweet girl. All right, go lay down. Yeah, go lay down. I'll cut this part out of the middle here.
You're fine.
Yeah, just, getting up to deal with the dog. So, have you always like journaled and been a writer? Like, I mean, what kind of called you to publishing?
Um, that's a great question. So I actually still have stories in a little binder from middle school that I wrote up, and they're absolutely terrible. But I want to keep them just in case I pulled, bits and pieces.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I've always enjoyed writing. I actually enjoyed essays. Like I don't, I felt like a nerd for that, but I liked writing
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I like kind of pulling it all together. And in high school, I completely stopped reading and writing. And then I think towards the end of high school, I finally got back into reading. And then I
Mhm.
wrote a book that will never see the light of day. But again, I'm going to keep it just in case I pull bits and pieces.
Right, right, right.
Um, and then there was just a lot of time there between, like, I don't even know, I can't even remember the day that I was like, I need to write, I'm fine. And because that was my first one.
Yeah,
And once I did that one, oh, because I had a friend who published on Amazon and he was saying how easy it was. I'm like, really? It's
yeah.
that easy?
Right, like
And
no
so I
big
was like,
deal. I mean,
well,
you could do it tomorrow if you had a book ready to go.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was just so impressed by that. And I always had on my bucket list, I wanted to publish one book.
Okay. Okay.
And I think I exceeded that. So
Yes, you hit that by six,
a
seven
few.
different occasions. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. um, but yeah, once I did I'm Fine, then Anthony had a book. He just had a prologue at the time. He's like, I'd always like to do just one. And I was like, I can help you now. I know how to do it.
Right.
So
Right.
it was just this, yeah, just a snowball effect this entire time.
That's kind of amazing. Like, have you always been like the type to like journal or anything like that, or just more like real writing when you sit down? Like, okay, we're doing an essay, we're doing a story.
I think all of the above. It really depends on like what download comes in.
Right. Right.
So like sometimes I'll have a download for one scene, and I love music a lot, and so like I will visualize an entire book scene and with just one song, and I'm like, now I have to go write
Interesting.
it down so I don't forget it.
I haven't heard anyone else say they do that, but I have, okay, I've got a couple story ideas that are like 10 years plus old. And I couldn't tell you anything about them, but if you put on the right song,
Mhm.
like I will tell you exactly what it looks like. I mean, I will paint that picture, but right now couldn't tell you anything about them. They're like stored on a CD somewhere, you know.
Right.
That's
Is
kind of
it
how you
something
do things.
like you visualize that being the song playing in the movie if it became a movie kind of thing for you?
Yes, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the soundtrack that'd be playing, and then like
Yep.
it just flows. And then I never put it on paper, but like it's there somewhere. And if I pull
Hmm.
that song up, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I remember. And suddenly you remember everything. But right now, like I got nothing. I could just tell you what song, and that's about it.
Hmm. I have a bunch of those like that. That's one of my favorite parts is finding the songs and scenes for the books when I'm writing them.
Hmm.
And like, I actually will think of like the trailer scene, this trailer song and the credit song,
No
all
kidding.
the
Yeah, I got
songs.
the whole thing.
Yep. That way, if they ever wanted to make it a movie, here you go. It's ready to go.
Like, listen, I'll tell you exactly which artist we need to reach out to
Right.
about royalties, and yeah.
Hmm.
That's pretty damn cool, actually. I haven't met anyone else who does that, but I have always suspected that art inspires more art, like across
Hmm.
genres. Like, I mean, someone might look at a painting and then come up with a song, and then someone might hear that song and come up with a book, and then someone reads that book, comes up with a movie, and
Yep.
like we all kind of play on each other's energy, even like across these different like mediums, modalities, this kind of thing.
Yeah, no, totally. That's actually with the paranormal murder mystery that Anthony and I are doing.
Nice.
Um, he saw a trailer for a movie that I don't think it did really well. I think it was like a B or C movie,
Hmm.
and but he just saw this trailer and it immediately just sparked this whole other idea. And he was like, "Well, wait a second." That was the one he sat down for 2 hours, done, typed up all the notes, the character details, everything. And
Just
then
like
he's like, "Here you
came to
go."
me and I just woo, just made it real. Like, here's this thing. I got to show you this thing.
Yeah, he just sparked by a trailer. Yeah.
That's pretty, when is that one coming out?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was because it's a more of like a spooky one. It was more towards Halloween, but as we've got family, we've got life, it happens. So at this point, it's just whenever it does,
You
which
know,
is another fun reason of being an indie author.
I understand that same thing, and I don't know if I have it right because I see people do like sophisticated book launches and they're like getting the word out in advance,
Mhm.
and I'm just like, it's ready, and I just like, here you go, and it's
Right.
just kind of like, I don't know if it's the best way, but it feels good. I'm like, all right, it's done, and now it's real, now it's available.
And as indie authors, we can. So I love that.
And that is the thing. There is a great beauty in the kind of control over the book.
Hmm.
Obviously, we all have to redirect ourselves to be marketers and do all kinds of other things beyond writing. But, win, lose, or draw, you own it 100%. Like it is your journey, it is your mountain. And
Hmm.
something about that is there's a great joy in that or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about your first book.
Okay.
Obviously, very, very difficult, deep subject. So that's
Yes.
I'm fine, correct?
Hmm.
And that is about a school shooter.
Yes. I actually am going through now and putting in content warnings because I didn't know that was a thing. So,
I didn't know
and
that's the thing either. I might need a
yes.
few of those.
Yeah,
So,
well, I have a link I found that I could send you that has a list of content warnings.
okay, just like kind of things like, hey, if your book includes these
Hmm.
things, you might want to.
Yes, it's so
Yeah.
helpful because I was like, oh, I didn't think about that, but yeah, that probably is something I need to put in there.
Well, I mean, it's not like you're hiding anything in the description, right? I mean, like anyone who reads the description is going to know what's in the book, and then
Mhm.
they shouldn't act surprised when they're like, oh, I had no
Right.
idea this was about. Um, but obviously, one of the most difficult subjects in America, for sure.
Hmm.
And complicated, right? I mean, like I do think as a society we tend to have all the wrong conversations about it. We it sounds like this book. Tell me a little bit about it. I mean, what is the perspective that went into it? What is the
Yeah. So I can't remember which incident it was, but I
Yeah.
know it was one of the ones in Florida a few years ago.
Okay.
And I have a degree in teaching, so I connected with the students, the teachers on that. And one of the big things is they kept talking about the person that did the incident,
Hmm.
and they were completely neglecting, like, I was like, okay, but how are the students? How are the teachers psychologically? How are they? Because that's a huge thing to go through.
Right.
And so that's what I wanted to hit, is that it shows everyone beforehand and just, high school problems
Yeah.
leading up to it. And there is one of the characters is the person. So
Hmm.
it's kind of like a whodunit. Um,
Yeah.
but and then why they did it and kind of seeing their mental side of it and like what made them finally snap. And then afterwards, how are the survivors feeling with that? How are they dealing with that? How are they growing from that?
That's obviously a very, very heavy subject. I don't know
Yes.
what could be more important per se. But it's definitely, I mean, it's a tough one, right? Like, and it sounds like it does what great art is supposed to do, which is to challenge, to give life to real problems. Like we tend to simplify a lot of things. Like we want the simplest story to explain whatever we're looking at. But great art, is supposed to shine a light, right? That like, look, there's this whole side of it that we need to consider. I mean,
Yeah.
there's all the survivors who never get over it. There's the person who committed this horrendous act, but like who were they before and what got them to that place? And I mean, without knowing that, I don't really know how we prevent it or help the
Mm.
people who go through that afterward.
Yeah. Well, and I was trying to think of that as I was writing through it too, because it's really hard in high school. I mean, there's just a lot of pressures and a lot of things going on in our brains, and our brains are not fully like there yet.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know how to prevent it. I think it is just trying to like help students when they look like they're starting to struggle as best as we can.
Right. And even worse, I mean, in this age now, so much of it is invisible, right? Like in old movies, you're like, oh, there's like the bully on the bus, but at least like, okay, everyone can see what's happening here. But with
Hmm.
the whole online thing and the anonymity, people can be bullied by and they don't even know who, and just like this relentless, and it's not like you go home and it's done kind of thing. It can like follow you everywhere, all hours of the day, digital bullying.
Yeah.
It's definitely, we live in an interesting time as far as that's concerned.
Hmm.
So yeah, it sounds like a very important book, but I'm sure it was hard to write. I'm sure
Hmm.
it's not clear who to send it to. Your reviews are perfect though for it. I mean, it seems like everyone who has checked it out was like, "I'm glad I did so because
Yeah.
there's something here."
That's hard to market too. Like, hey, would you like a book about school shooting?
Right, be like, "Hey, whether you're having a good day or bad day, it's a bit of a
Yeah.
tough sell." You're
You want to
like,
be sad today?
"Listen, like I don't know what you're trying to feel today, but here's but but great art ought to be challenging, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
we can't just always do what feels good. I mean, there is real life and we need to live in it.
Hmm. No, I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, that's kind of like Truth and Evil with yours. Like that was tough, and there's a lot of tough in there, but in the end, it's a good story. It's a good concept. So it's something, and
It's
it's challenging.
trying to market it has been weird. It's
Mm-hmm.
done better than my other books in terms of marketing, but in terms of like who is the right fit for this book, totally unclear to me, right? Like people
Hmm.
outside of the church, like, nah, it's not my thing. People in the church be like, nah, you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
it isn't obvious who you should send it to. And I suppose a lot of books are like that, right? But
Hmm.
it doesn't mean it can't do very meaningful things, right? Like I have this theory, like as indie authors, first we need to be grateful for every single reader,
Oh
no
yeah.
matter what. But you also don't know, like you might have a very significant impact. Like you might have 10 readers, but for all you know, like you did something very important for those 10 people and they found your book
Hmm.
right when they needed to, and it did something in their lives that like you'll never really know about, but the work matters even if it isn't obvious to us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was someone, I think it's a singer, and he has a line, and I'm blanking on who it is, but
Hmm.
he has a line that says, "My work will live on past me," and that
Hmm.
has stuck with me so much that I'm like, Yeah, like my kids, my grandkids, they will have my work. I mean, like I just got 1984 and like
There
so
you go.
like this work will live on past the writer and that's amazing to think of.
It really is. And I almost think of it as like previous generations having a conversation, right? Like, you look at I don't know, you read the Odyssey or something. I mean, it takes you
Mhm.
back to, 2,500 years ago in Greece.
Right.
I mean, it is a profound art form. It trips me up. Like, it's one of those things, like sometimes when you're on an airplane and you think about being on an airplane, you're like, holy hell, we're in a Pepsi can 30,000 feet in the sky. And like, that's crazy. But the idea that like these words, like you combine these letters and these words somehow have this meaning, and people read it and they understand exactly what it means, and they can paint a psychological picture. And it's like, I can translate a vision into words, and then the reader can retranslate that back into the vision.
Hmm.
It is magic,
Oh yeah, it's like a
legitimate magic.
portal. We're
It
making
really,
portals.
astonishing, right? And I mean, I imagine
Yeah.
like for someone who can't read, you like look at someone who has a book and you're like, how do they know these things, right? Like they've got a map. You're like, how does he have this? Yeah. How does he understand these? It's a wonderful art form for sure.
Hmm.
It really is, and astonishing.
Yeah.
We have about 3 minutes left, and we're going to maximize that time. And I got this wrong on a couple podcasts where I didn't give enough time. I want people to be able to find you if they're looking for you. So let's get your plugs in before we get cut off for sure.
Okay.
Where should people
Well,
go look for you?
Well, I mean, Lynn Taylor on Amazon is me, and then Anthony Drake on Amazon, and May Paulson on Amazon. And actually, if TikTok stays around, we're at TA Books on TikTok. We have a link tree in there that has all of those, with all of our different book links, and where you can find our author pages. I do have a website. It's at Entrepreneurs. It's like entrepreneur, but with play in the middle.
I do love
Uh,
that as the email address too. I love it. I
I
love it.
I love it, and I'm keeping it. But
Keeping
like,
it.
I have no idea where it's gonna go, but it's kind of like our umbrella company in a sense. So I am
Okay.
redoing the website. I was so inspired by your website and how you
Cool.
had the indie author spotlights and the narrators, and so I'm hoping that mine will start looking a little bit like that too. But
It could be cool. I mean, I almost like, these websites could be like a central hub. Like, hey, like if
yeah,
you love books, you love art, like we've got something to offer. Like, come check this out. We got a
oh
lot to
yeah.
look at. Yeah.
Well, I mean, even if I was looking for a narrator, I could go to your website and find like a narrative people have already used and loved and trusted instead of trying to sit there and pick through a whole list of people that I have no idea where to start.
It could be valuable for sure. And it
Yeah.
feels good to collaborate with other artists or like I don't know, there's something about, just working with other people who are kind of in the same, we're holding all, each other accountable, inspiring one another,
Hmm.
challenging one another, promoting one another. It feels right. I like the direction the whole, TikTok book community is headed.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I'm enjoying reading new indie author books and talking with them and sharing their stuff. And so like I just want to like help promote everybody.
No, and that's one of the things I wanted to bring you on. You have been one of like just the best indie book advocates I've seen. I mean, you're an author, you've got your own books to write and work on and sell, but you're also just absolute, book lover and indie book supporter. And I mean,
Yeah,
you just basically spend all your day reading. I mean, if you're very like
basically.
prolific.
No, it's so much fun. I'm in like again, there's so many stories I would have never even thought to go look for because it's harder to market. And now
Right.
I've been through more portals than I would have before. So
That's pretty amazing. And there are some absolute gems in the indie
mhm.
world. I mean, there's like some wonderful work lingering out there. So we're going to get cut off in about 30 seconds, but
Yep.
I got the impression from your bio that you're writing just for fun and like to connect. You're putting them out there like, hey, maybe you'll connect with this. If so, that'd be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, basically.
So there's not like some grand vision of like New York Times bestseller. It's like, no, we love writing and we want to.
I at this point have 50 different book concepts. So as long as I get them out of my head and onto paper, I'm good.
I could keep rolling. Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
living